Hello, and welcome to another review video. This time around, I'll be looking at the Christmas seasonal REM. There are 33 units in the REM and 2 machines you can roll in. One machine is 2 magic stones more expensive than the other and excludes only 2 5-star units, which barely changes the pull rate for most of the units in the more expensive REM. This seasonal is one that comes pretty soon after their JP debut, so NA gets an early taste of JP's current power creep level. But as it is with almost all seasonals, it's rare that units from this machine will actually stand out. I am not too excited about the seasonal as there is only one unit I plan to get, and thankfully they are exchangeable. There are other units that would be nice to have, but I would not recommend chasing them or buying their bundles, especially now since we know Digimon is coming to NA. Since these units are only a week old in JP, I might be overlooking some units' usefulness, so let me know if you can think of any use cases for these new or buffed units. Also, please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Now let me start with, these two are exchangeable clerics, but save your fodder, as these two are very outdated. Scarlet is now a 3-turn cleric without any downsides like the net. Since this seems to be the start of more 3-turn cooldown clerics being released, you might be better off waiting for other better ones, or you might already have the much better other Christmas cleric that also is on a 3-turn cooldown, Fasca. Scarlet on paper is not a bad damage-oriented cleric that also has 4 Ls, but her being wood attribute severely limits her. Gremory's active skill got reduced to 5 turns, but that's still pretty average when compared with other clerics. And Fire already has a bunch of great clerics like Frey, La Diabla, and Yuffie. If you don't have any of these and had to absolutely make an exchange for one of these Christmas units, then maybe Scarlet might be the better option, as they are less expensive, could also go in a Fire team, and have way more utility with her 4 Ls. Hopefully no one is actually making you trade, so skip these units. Almina is also an exchangeable cleric that can add a lot of bulk to your team with those 2 first forms with multiple team HP awakenings. None of her Evos will manage to do much damage though, so I would only look to her for utility. Her last Evo exchanges those team HPs for heal OEs and a double L, but all of these Alminas have the same 6-turn active skill cooldown, which is a bit long for my liking. Light has access to the 2 best clerics in the game at the moment, Circlia and Kohaku, so the only reason why you would want to use the Almina would be their team HP awakenings, but that's a problem you could also solve by stacking multiple team HP equips. Yogg could actually deal some damage in red BDP teams, but his cooldown is even longer than Illumina's, so they are going to be very unreliable and time consuming if a dungeon is going to require multiple cleric effects soon after another. Yogg's equip has a rare combination of Fua and Super Fua awakenings, which I guess could be used in a ranking dungeon for style points, but that's too much of a niche case, so I don't think this warrants exchanging for Yogg. Patty is a good healing stick, but doesn't really fit into any meta teams at the moment or in the near future. Wood and Light got some support lately in JP, mainly with Pooh from the Disney collab, so even if she were to be regarded as a good Christmas unit in JP, that's probably not going to be the case for us in NA, since we're probably not gonna get Disney. Patty's equip could work on SN3 on a non-healer unit to get more HP and get a damage boost thanks to the equip's awakenings, though the low cooldown active skill, lack of bulk, and having no more than one effective skill boost doesn't really help this equip's case. Minoa is a decent wood damage dealer. Her 9 Roar awakenings give the equivalent of a 3.7x multiplier. That is still less than a 7C plus awakening, but this damage multiplier from the rows is applied to the whole team instead of only to a unit's personal multiplier. And unfortunately for Minoa, for these set of buffs, she didn't get any additional personal damage multipliers, like a BDP or a 10C awakening, so her damage is kind of lacking by today's standards. Christmas Minoa is stuck in the past as a pairing to Nautilus or other Wood BDP and Row teams, and these teams don't really have a reliable way of generating Wood orbs. Even then, Minoa can still tackle a lot of content, but I don't think a lot of people are going to be lining up to play with this lackluster unit. These 2 Christmas units are piercers and thus immediately don't have much use. Though for Fire, Combo TPA teams have gotten some support, and these type of teams do often require a piercer sub. Unfortunately for these units, the best Fire TPA combo leader at the moment in JP is Natsu, who is a piercer unit himself. Natsu is from a collab that I don't think we have a high chance of getting, and even if we assume that we'll get it, then there's not really any use for these 2 Christmas units, as again, Natsu will play the piercer role. At the very least for Shiadon, his utility might help a lot in any team that needs a piercer as long as you don't have any need for Dark Orbs, as this unit makes them unmatchable. His equip could also be very useful for farming teams due to its pierce and absorption voiding effects and for its dungeon boost and 7th awakenings. There have been a few super gravity dungeons released in JP recently, like SN5 and one of the Gung-Ho collab dungeons, where boss drops are not guaranteed. Not to mention that the combination of damage and dungeon boost awakenings on an equip is pretty rare at the moment. There are others in JP with a 10C and 4 attribute match awakenings, but Jiadon is an older unit and used to be an orb skin, so maybe you have a copy already in your monster box. And even if you don't, I wouldn't consider rolling just for their equip, as I'm pretty sure more and better dungeon boost equips with damage awakenings are for sure on their way. Christmas Tamadra is an exchangeable cleric that has a 7-turn cooldown, 1-turn haste active skill, but this one is not that unique, since there are other units like Super Reincarnated Amaterasu and Bright Tuola who also give you haste and a cleric effect. Tamadra does have a unique aspect to their active skill, as they can create combo orbs on the board. At the moment, I don't think this new effect is all that useful. At worst, it'll end up making your runs a bit slower, and at best, you'll probably only get a marginal dungeon boost from the 5 extra combos, so this might not matter in the grand scheme of things. Unfortunately, none of the other forms or equips are all that useful at the moment, so like with the other exchangeable clerics, I would pass on this. Alone is a pretty decent rainbow unit, as her active skill is essentially on a 4-turn cooldown in a rainbow team, if you match all attributes every turn. This unit condenses 2 important roles into one unit with a short cooldown, so you could definitely save a team slot by relying on Polone as your cleric and absorption voider. Obviously, you will have to time her active, since most of the time, you can't even survive a turn while you're awoken bound, or unable to match orbs to activate your leader skill damage reduction. The only possible downside to this mid-priority unit is their low cooldown priest-transformation active skill, since it can be easily overcharged in today's meta with newer transforming units having an almost 40-turn pre-transformation active skill. Celica is an exchangeable unit, but I would pass on her this time around. Her fire rates and equips do not stand out much nowadays. Her Dark Evo was one of the early looping auto healers, but nowadays she's got way more competition, especially from someone like Yuira, who also has a cleric effect in her active skill. Celica still offers a good amount of utility and could actually deal damage in a Dark PvP team, but I feel like you're better off using trade fodder for more worthwhile trades. She takes 7-star GFEs as fodder, and I feel like this could be better used for someone like Orlando from Gung-Ho Another Story, or for TK and Hikari from Digimon in the very near future. Celine is also exchangeable for 7-star GFEs, so I would put her in the same camp as Celica. She might be a worthwhile exchange if you care about farming, but only do so if you're sure you'll get a lot of use from her. She is pretty limited to what dungeons you can farm, since she's got a low damage multiplier on both forms. The base form also has a very long cooldown active skill, and the Evo takes a while to set up, since the first stage active skill does not haste or at least generate a fire break. So again, be very cautious when exchanging. If you plan to get Omnimon, you will want to get your own TK and Hikari, so take a look at their required fodder before making any Christmas trades. Endra is a new mid-priority auto healer capable of dealing damage. Not only that, but they also gave a team-wide cap break. Unluckily for her, fire TPAs do not have a lot of support at the moment, and might not get any in the near future, since again, we might miss out on Natsu from the weekly shonen collab. Endra could be used alongside Valentine Noah or other older units who do not have a cap break active skill, for example, Seina, but you're going to be severely limited to which dungeons you can tackle with these outdated units. Valentine's is soon approaching, and maybe we might end up getting the last 2 magazine collabs from JP, so Endra might have a chance to be useful very soon. But to get this Christmas unit, you'll have to dig into the Christmas REM, which I would highly discourage. Meredith is an orb skin unit, but unfortunately for her, Omnimon will suck up all the oxygen. Meredith is an unreliable orb generator and piercer. Nowadays, that doesn't cut it for most endgame dungeons. You could create a system with 3 of her, but again, you might be unable to generate consistent kill boards. Her equip does sport 2 useful killers and 4 effective skill boosts, but honestly, this together with the base unit are not worth $20 or the chase. Aamir is a damage-oriented cleric that also has a decent amount of utility with his heal OEs and possible 6 skill boosts. His cleric active skill gives a looping time buff and cap break effect for double types, but you can't really loop this active skill willy-nilly since you almost always need to save your cleric for specific floors. The double cap break might not have that many applications at the moment since most strong double types have a self cap break effect in their active skills. Aamir could work with Christmas Aljae's new Evo since that unit doesn't have a cap break effect in her active skill. Aamir's equip is the only one that has a 10C and Dungeon Boost Awakenings at the moment, which might be useful in the future for farming Super Gravity dungeons without guaranteed drops, or to farm XP in places like the Billion Title Dungeon. Aamir is a great unit and equip, but you can only obtain him by rolling in the REM, which again I would highly discourage. Maybe you could get lucky from the stamps or free roll, but definitely don't chase after this unit. Zeus is the badge unit, so he's purchasable for $30 or exchangeable for 20 Christmas units. This is a light brick farming unit, but they're a bit weird. A 45% gravity is a little off from being able to deal with super assaults, which are almost always at 50% HP. I don't believe there's a 55% super assault at the moment, but knowing Gung-Ho will probably encounter an enemy with that specific resolve and a high combo absorption shield in a ranking dungeon. Since the active skill gravity is only a single target type, this unit's purpose might just be to handle the tankiest breakable part, as these all lately have different HP values, with some having even more than the main body. This unit might be key for some descended dungeon or power break farming, but it might also be a dot too. His first equip is the only one so far with a Dungeon Boost and Power Break Awakenings, which again could be useful for dungeons like SN5, but this one doesn't offer anything of use when it comes to effective skill boost or bulk. The second equip is also a single target 45% gravity, but instead of a board change, it charges by one turn, which could be very useful in some farming dungeons, but just like with the base form, I don't see many applications for this at the moment. A lot of times, you just want to get an enemy to 50% HP, and you can't really do that with this unit and equip, so you're better off using someone like Orlando or using yours equip. You could get an enemy down to 50% HP with some other gravity on top of Christmas Zeus, but if you're gonna use two actives anyway, you could just use two 30% gravities, which are more plentiful and don't require 20 Christmas units as straight fodder. I would avoid exchanging or buying this unit, as I don't see much value for this at the moment. Sure, they might be useful later down the line, but that's an expensive gamble. If you're swimming in trade fodder, I would first look at the other big exchange, Cecilia Sophie, and then maybe come back to this one. Lavril is a new orb skin unit, and instead of being a looping shield, her Christmas variant loops RCB, attack, and a cap break effect to healer types. At the moment, there isn't some other healer rainbow team that would particularly want this unit, but she herself can be a leader since she's got a pretty decent leader skill. Unfortunately, you will need a full healer team to reach needed HP thresholds for endgame content, since the HP buff is restricted to that type. But that might be an easy problem to solve with add healer type equips like Orehime's, Circlia's, and multiple other ones from Pat Island units. Lavril is meant to be paired up with the new Christmas Aljae Evo, since that's the only other strong rainbow healer unit at the moment. It might feel like Lavril brings too much of a recovery boost to the team, but this type of boost will soon be needed. SN4 was a clue as to what's to come in newer in-game dungeons, as these all seem to boost a specific monster type HP and also be a super altitude dungeon. Needing a lot of HP was already a requirement in in-game dungeons, but now we are also going to need large recovery boosts from leader skills and active skills. Outside of the new Christmas Aljae, Lavril doesn't really have that many places to shine. Sure, any rainbow team will gladly take her, but her active skill buffs aren't all that necessary in, say, a Geno team. Since we now know Omnimon will be arriving to the server, I would say there's less of a reason to go after Lavril. Had we had no signs of JJK or Digimon coming soon to NA, then maybe I would have argued that going after Lavril and Christmas Aljae would have been the move if you wanted to tackle the newest in-game dungeons as soon as possible. So I would save myself the chase or the $20, since now we'll have access to the most broken unit in the game. Lavril's equip is useful though. It adds 2 monster types, and these 2 are very useful for SN3 and SN4. They also give you 6 effective skill boosts and a damage awakening. The Dungeon Boost Awakening might not seem all that useful at the moment, but this equip will be great for rainbow teams to tackle SN5. They can help raise the chances of a boss drop, give a decent damage boost, and give a very significant HP boost for non-physical and non-healer units, since they now will get Lavril's leader skill HP buff and SN5's physical HP buff. At the moment, there's not going to be a lot of rainbow teams that will be able to tackle SN5, but this is a very specific use, and it kind of only applies to teams that use Lavril as a leader. If you don't care for these rainbow healer teams, I wouldn't pay much attention to this unit. Aljae is an old BGM unit. Her base leader skill allows you to get an insane damage multiplier if you match a lot of light combos. She isn't a light combo leader though, since you also have to match 3 other attributes to activate your leader skill damage reduction. This Christmas unit is a looping roulette and time buffer, which alone isn't too groundbreaking for this BGM unit, as we have other units like Raffin Kitty, Ogi, and San Barriot who provide comparable damage or skill boost. This unit does have the advantage of being a healer, so she could work with the new Christmas Lavril without needing a healer type equip. Aljae's first equip is the next best thing awakening-wise to Halloween Paimon's equip. It's obviously not as good since you're missing out on OEs, a team HP, and I would also say a generally better active skill. The second equip is okay. It could turn a 1-turn cooldown unit into a looping roulette and time buffer, but I'm pretty sure no one will actually do this. The highlight is our new Evo, which can tackle the newest dungeons in JP. You can make a 3-unit system that has a permanent pierce effect and a 1.5 HP buff that also gives you an activatable ward. Not only that, but this system would also allow you to break 1 shield every turn. Her pierce effect does seem out of place. Traditionally, you would run the pierce latent on rainbow units like this one. Since you got the pierce covered, you could run the attribute absorption latent on Aljae instead. Aljae's later skill also has a good mix of bonus combos and follow-up attack, which together with Christmas Lavril gives you plus 6 combos and 18 million FUA, the latter of which is enough to tackle SN5 since you need at least 15 million there. Or you could run double Aljae teams and then have plus 8 combos and 16 million FUA, which again is more than enough for SN5. One thing I do think Aljae teams will suffer with will be their healing, because buffing your HP every single turn means you will have to constantly heal to full HP from at most 2/3 of your HP, and this might be difficult if your Christmas Lavril's RCB buff is down, if you're even running her at all. Also, if you opt out of using Lavril, you will miss out on having a higher cap break since Aljae doesn't do that on her own as most other good leaders do. Another option is to run Christmas Aamir, which is also not as easy to loop as Lavril, since most of the time you have to time your cleric very carefully. I'm not the biggest fan of Christmas Aljae teams. They are very expensive to build, as you'll need 2 or 3 of this BGM unit and a Christmas mid rarity, either Aamir or Lavril, as core members of your team. This might be more feasible if you have purchased every Aljae bundle and also plan to buy Lavrils. But for everyone else that doesn't spend any or very little money, then I don't think there's much of an incentive to chase this BGM and venture into this lackluster REM. I think you'll be better off using your resources in the Digimon collab. Fasca is a BGM unit who is an amazing damage-oriented cleric. Her base form also handles board shrinkage, and she was extremely useful on release due to this, but now maybe not as much, since we have more options that help deal with that debuff. Her equips remain useful, though again, these have also been power creep awakening-wise, and the lack of effective skill boost in the active skill does not help. Her Evo got the most significant buff, which now makes her final stage active skill have a 3-turn cooldown, full cleric effect with no downside. When it comes to the unit's awakenings, these are a great mix of utility and damage, as long as you make a cross. I would say this Evo is great on any team that uses light orbs, but since we are about to enter the age of Omnimon, we might not see Fasca all that much, even though Omnimon could make use of her. Omnimon teams would either use Hikari, Gene Tonic, and mainly Aurora, so if you only see yourself playing Omnimon until he falls out of fashion, then I wouldn't pay too much mind to this Christmas unit. Evo Fasca is also competing with Cerclia, so if you manage to roll one of those, I would say there's even less of a reason to go after this bundle unit. While I do like Fasca and all of her forms and equips, I find it hard to justify buying her bundle. Cecilia and Sophie is an exchangeable rebuffer that offers a decent amount of utility. Their awakenings and 3 different attributes make them usable in different teams to help recover assists or to deal with sticky blinds. Her Evo active skill does grant some flexibility when it comes to what assist you can put on them, since all you have to care about is the awakenings, since they are very unlikely to overcharge. All of the final stage active skill effects are great as they can tackle multiple debuffs and help cope with large hits that might be scattered throughout a dungeon. And with those attributes, Cecilia and Sophie fit fine in an Omnimon team, though those teams don't have much flexibility unless you're willing to drop TK, since that's the only possible flexible slot. If you drop TK and lead with 2 Omnimons, you'll then be susceptible to time debuffs and will need to heal a little more. Cecilia and Sophie's active skill would obviously help out with those issues and then some, since the usual Omnimon team has no out to HP debuffs. It will suck missing out on the looping roulette though, since that is Omnimon's solution to board shrinks, and this Christmas unit unfortunately only provides 1 roulette for a turn. Eventually, we'll get Stella from Gung Ho collab, but I keep getting derailed. I should save this for the Omnimon or Stella review. Just know that Omnimon might make good use out of Cecilia and Sophie in a few months. Both of the unit's equips are pretty solid. The first one is great in general to add damage and 5 effective skill boosts. The second one is a low cooldown equip to deal with big hits and attribute and damage absorption shields. This is an alternative to Pad Island Dark Vunaka's equip, which is generally better since that one has a 2-turn shield, but 1 turn might be all that you need to take one really big hit. One use case is in SN5, where a spawn absorbs light and dark attacks, has super resolve, and hits for 1.1 million damage as their first action. So if you run a light or dark team, you are going to need 2 turns of Attribute Absorption Void for this floor in SN5. This is very relevant for Ursa teams since they only run a 1-turn Attribute and Damage Absorption Voider, but maybe don't pay too much attention to that since this team is from a collab that NA might not actually get. But if you want to be prepared in case we get Ursa and you don't have Pad Island Vunaka, or maybe you like both equips regardless of Ursa, then exchanging for this equip might not be a bad idea. This duo unit requires 15 Christmas units as trade fodder, so if you've been playing for a while now, you might have enough fodder for a painless trade. And if you don't have the fodder, I wouldn't worry too much about this unit, since you should definitely save your stones and use them on Digimon. This is the one Christmas unit I have my eye on, since I plan on getting Omnimon, and thankfully, they are exchangeable. I'll be trading for this duo unit since I've collected enough fodder from previous Christmas runs. Even if you for some reason do not care about Omnimon, Cecilia and Sophie still have pretty good equips, so if you have also collected enough fodder, I would still consider getting this unit as they could work in many different teams due to their utility and equips. I see value in all of Fasca's evos and equips, but I still think she might sit collecting dust in your monster box, since the only light cleric you'll most likely be using for the next few months might be Hikari from Digimon. Aljae and Lavril can make up a strong team capable of clearing the upcoming SN5 dungeon, but I question their longevity since I think they'll have a hard time healing in newer super altitude dungeons. This is not unique to this team, since Omnimon teams don't even have a leader skill recovery buff, and Christmas Lavril gives you both a leader skill and active skill recovery buffs, but hers and Aljae's survivability against thorns and RCB debuffs give me pause. Exchangeable units like Zeus and Celine have some potential value for farming, but I really wouldn't go through the exchange unless you have concrete plans for them. Zeus is more of a gamble though, since I don't think any specific dungeon requires him, but Gung-Ho might surprise us very soon. Other mid-rarities like Aamir and Xiaohodon have very unique dungeon boost equips at the moment, but they're not really worth the chase, especially knowing that Digimon is around the corner. Aamir also has the benefit of being a decent cleric, but again, not worth the chase. So the main takeaway from this video is, Digimon is actually happening. I recommend saving your stones so that you can get the next best leader in NA, Omnimon. He is the patch unit and thus exchangeable for about 100 stones each, so be prepared to roll at least 300 magic stones in that collab. One mid-rarity unit you will want to get is Joe, since he completes the orb generation loop with your 3 copies of Omnimon. Getting Joe might require more than the quoted 300 magic stones if you're unlucky, so the more you save, the better. We should expect this collab very soon since Gung-Ho NA announced it in their December news video. Usually, I talk a bit more about upcoming collabs at the end of my videos, but since Digimon is soon approaching, I have to get working on that review video. I guess RIP JJK? Or is it too soon to say that? I'll talk more about future events and collabs at the end of my Digimon review. Stay tuned by subscribing to this channel, and please follow my Twitch, where I'll be streaming my Digimon rolls, review units from the upcoming GA Bunko collab in JP, and do other path related things. Alright, that does it for this video. Please let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.